What would you have to do if you didn't have to do anything? You've got all the money in the world, you've got all the resources you need for everything. What would you be doing? For the past 17 plus years, I've been a location independent entrepreneur, traveling the world, organizing and leading tours. You could create a trip around any interest: book reading, language, cooking, knitting, shopping, textiles, anything. My new theme is travel deep, not wide. When I was a younger person, I wanted to do everything and tick everything off my lists. But you start to realize that that's not what life's about. When they say it's about the journey, it's really true.
Give us, from your perspective, a debrief on what your business looks like and how you've done what you do.
Sure. So for the past 17 plus years, I've been a location independent, which means intentionally homeless entrepreneur who has been traveling the world, organizing and leading tours on 6 of the 7 continents so far. And it's been something that I've started from scratch, something I always wanted to do. Yeah, I'm 62 years old, so I'm a little bit older, but for many, many moons since I was 15 and I studied in for a summer in high school. And then the next year I was a volunteer in Peru. The next summer I was a volunteer in Venezuela. And the next summer I studied in Mexico City to learn Spanish. So I've been traveling a lot since I was fairly young. But what happened is there was this confluence, this perfect storm of the internet, cell phones, and social media that allowed me to do what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Isn't it crazy across the board with, like you said, technology progression? Back in the day, it's not as long ago for me as it might have been for you, but when you entered the professional realm, there was very cut and dry paths that you could take. And just that last 2 decades of introducing technology in the way that it's there, being able to take the internet with you everywhere you go, even having the internet and now social media and all of that, it has literally created hundreds of new career opportunities, income producing opportunities, maybe thousands. Hundreds is probably playing it way too small. Even for my husband, he went to music school and it was like, okay, you go to music school to then go create a career in performance or teaching. And now it's like tons of other ways to pursue that. So it's amazing that you've found your way to just carve that path, and something I think has risen in popularity now, especially with more social media awareness. But you were kind of a forerunner and a pioneer in that, of like, hey, we could actually make money doing this, right?
I think so. I kind of saw it early on. I saw the opportunity. I didn't get into the internet like most people probably until like 93. I remember I was living in Mexico City, actually. I was just moving to Mexico City to get my master's in international business. And I went to registration and they asked me what my email address was. And I'm like, what's email? That's it's so funny to think back that long ago, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, the technology part of it, I'm a medium Luddite, I do enjoy learning the technology. I just get frustrated, but it's absolutely invaluable for our business.
Yeah. So I mean, even before getting into the meat and potatoes of the technology and how that's been able to move things forward, I know you have a program where you like go into depth with this, but give us kind of the framework of, if I want to start doing this, if I want to create the success that you have, take us through your journey. Cause I'm sure you would do a few things differently now if you were starting today. So maybe for somebody who's like, you know what, this is a cool path. I would love to just get paid to travel, take people on tours. I don't even know if we've gotten into the nitty gritty of that being a huge way that you monetized. So yeah, maybe give us like some overarching ways you can think about making money in travel in that industry, and then your favorite ways and your actual like modality, how you've done that. That was a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So back in 2001 to 2004, I had my second restaurant in downtown Chicago. I grew up in the restaurant business, so had experience with that. But I was coming to the end of my initial 3-year lease, and I had to decide if I was going to sign for another 5 years or was I going to sell the business and move on, which I'd opened up 5 months before 9/11. And so business took an even deeper dive after 9/11. And I was in
Mm.
the heart of downtown Chicago, which everyone thought Chicago was going to be next. So it was a tough time. So I decided I was going to sell the business. I literally took a yellow pad and on the left side, I said, what don't I like about the restaurant business? Well, I have to have employees. I have to have a retail space that's very expensive. The rent comes due whether or not you had a good month or not.
Hmm.
I come home smelling like a French fry every night. So all these negatives. And at the right side, I said, okay, I want to work for myself. I want to work from wherever my laptop is, not have to have a retail space and have to pay so much money for. And I want to take a shower before work, not after work. And this is when what I call the dawn of digital photography started happening in the early 2000s. And I got my 1 megapixel camera and I started messing around with it. And I said, but there's people that would pay me to teach them how to use these new digital cameras, which were very strange at the time. And I could create some walking tours where I could teach people how to use their cameras and get some photos and be outside and do this thing that I love. But earlier than that, when I first started thinking about wanting to make a living from travel, when I first started traveling, it was like, about as likely as my becoming a rock star or something. It was just so out there. But now, because of these things we talked about earlier, it's pretty doable. It is doable.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah. And are you still doing it? Are you still actively taking people and doing tours even today?
Yeah. So we're in August, and just this past May, I say that I pre-tired, meaning that I'm sort of halfway between retiring from a full-time job. So I'm still going to keep busy. I don't want to just sit on a beach. I don't mind taking groups to beaches and sitting there, but I feel like I got to stay active and have a purpose. So I'll always keep my hands on something. But instead of doing 10 or 12 trips a year, which I was doing, organizing, leading, planning, everything, I'm doing 2 or 3 trips.
Mm.
So slowing down a little bit, and it's just fine with me. I'll still get to do my travel. I plan to move to Europe, or at least to start moving around the world, medium term. So maybe 2 to 3 months in each place instead of 2 to 3 nights, like on
Yeah.
a trip. And my business has progressed. I've gone from doing trips where we might spend 14 days in Morocco and see 6 different locations, pack and unpack 6 times, to now we're doing like 7 to 9 day trips where we pack and unpack once, maybe twice. And
Mm,
so we're doing more of a deep dive. So my new theme is travel deep, not wide.
I love
So
that.
when I was a younger person, I wanted to do everything and tick everything off my lists. And I think that's great when you have energy and everything. But as you get older, you start to realize that's not what life's about. That when they say it's about the journey, it's really true. Now I'm much more about slow travel.
Yeah. Well, I kind of love that that's morphed with you as you've progressed too, because yes, having more energy, and I think it's all a matter of priority. So it kind of works out for you that the way that you want to sell and take people on these trips aligns with your new set of values, which is like traveling deeper. But even from a marketing standpoint, like somebody who there's still a ton of people who that's a priority and they maybe are younger. Maybe there's still people who are in their retirement where they're like, I waited my whole life to retire so I could travel. I want to see as much of the world as I can. So I think that's super powerful to recognize there's a lot of different ways you can meet people with what their values are with travel, and you get to align as a creator of that business what yours are and call more people in just like you. And it's fun that it's kind of morphed through time where you used to be more of travel wide, see everything, check it all off the bucket list. I'm not even that old yet, and I would be more of your target market than the person who's like, let's go to all 8 countries in
Yeah.
8 countries in 8 days. I'd be like,
Yeah.
absolutely not. Take me everywhere I need to go in Paris, France, and actually take me outside of the traditional places and show me really unique cultural experiences. So, will you walk us through if I wanted to start a business like this right now, or I want to do tours? And side note, are you still focusing heavily on the photography element as you're taking these tours where you're helping people to capture great photos, or is that just one of the things and it's primarily to guide the whole experience?
Yeah. Great question. I started out as a photo workshop leader. So I teach a course called Tour Organizer Training, Get Paid to Travel. It's an online course, got 7 modules, 28 lessons, and it's 14 hours worth of material. But I created this course to teach people how to organize and lead their own tours because a lot of people are asking me, how can I do what you do? Looks like you live the ideal life, which is pretty great. So I decided to put this course together, outlining step by step exactly what's involved, from setting up your business, pre-trip planning to during the trip and after the trip. So just laying it out for people, because man, do I wish there was something like that when I started my business. I had to figure this all out myself. Laying that out for everyone line by line is a really nice way to go. But for this type of business, it is ideal. And for me, I'm single. I've never been married. I don't have children. It's much easier for me, and I understand to lead a trip to do this business than for someone who's got a family and a career and everything. So obviously, you have to consider your own situation, and you don't have to do 10 or 12 trips a year. You could do one trip a year. But coming back to your point is I recommend in the course that you have a special interest to build your trips around. And so mine initially was photography. Yours might be cooking classes or language or who knows what, arts, shopping. You could build a trip around any theme, but I recommend having a theme so that you can target your marketing. So
Mm.
mine was photography. And then I started to back off of that. So I went from photo workshops to photo tours to customized tours with a focus on photography. And now they're cultural tours. And of course, everyone's got their cameras. So even I backed off the every sunrise, sunset, image reviews, walking tours, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so really critical. And I love how this is universal. So even if everybody listening doesn't want to start this exact business, hopefully you're picking up on the through line that occurs in every episode, like picking a niche, picking a focus that occurs in every business. If you try to serve everyone, you're not going to serve anyone.
Yeah.
And after that, after you've kind of picked a specialty, and even within that, as you're looking, it may be pretty obvious and easy for some, like you recognized a need and you also have this passion and this skill for photography. We had a guest on here several months ago who does food tours. So there's lots of people who do those foodie tours where it's all around the food, taking you to the best restaurants. What else should you look at for yourself if you want to get paid to travel? You're not really sure what your shtick is yet. Like, what would be some ways to figure that out?
Yeah, good question. So look at what magazines you're reading, what YouTube channels you're visiting. Obviously, what are your special interests? What is your, I hate the word passion, I'm sorry, but I just think it's overused. But what's your passion? What are you constantly doing? What are your interests? I wrote a book, an ebook a while back called Niche, Question Your Way to Finding Yours.
Hmm.
And it was a list of questions you should ask yourself to find your niche. And the best question, and I didn't come up with it, I wish I had, but was what would you have to do if you didn't have to do anything? It's really profound. If you didn't have to do anything, you've got all the money in the world, you've got all the resources you need for everything. What would you be doing? What would you have
Mm,
to do? What are you compelled to do? That's your passion, and
mm,
perhaps build a trip around that. Now, the other side of the coin is be careful if you build your business around your hobbies, like
mhm.
I did with photography, but got to a point where I wasn't enjoying photography like I used to because now it's my job. It's
Yeah,
24/7. It's not something I do every couple of weeks when I feel like it and I'm in the mood. I have to do it every day. And
mm,
it's only 2 to 5% of my job, really.
yeah,
Being out there photographing, teaching photography is 2 to 5% of my job. The rest is all the pre and post and during trip planning and all that good stuff.
right,
Keep that
yeah.
in mind. Yeah.
Yep, I think it is something if you have an entrepreneurial brain and heart that we have to be really careful. I was having a discussion with a friend yesterday, like, sometimes we can get a little out of control and wanna monetize everything, and some things, like, just kinda leave it in the hobby zone. It's okay if it's just something you do to fill your cup, but I think it's good awareness, and also you wanna be super aligned with whatever the value is of what you're gonna put into a tour or a trip. And I'm sitting here thinking for myself as you were talking, this could even be beyond, like, an interest that is relevant to, like, tours and, like, trips where I love emotional, intelligence and grounding, and I see the need for entrepreneurs to come back to themselves so that their businesses can actually grow because you can't outperform your business can't outperform your capacity. So I would look at if I was to plan something, it might not be a tour where we're going lots of places because maybe the value is, like, being rooted somewhere that's new, fresh, and has a beautiful surrounding, going somewhere where we can gather and still have a rich cultural experience, but it's less about the trying to see a ton of stuff and like having a really, really valuable experience where that can be the theme, you know? So I think that's a cool way to consider it too, is it doesn't have to be a tour per se. It can be a retreat. It can be that trip where you're still the guide through an experience that incorporates in the travel and allows you to go somewhere that you want to see and visit and share that with other people.
No doubt about it. And I'm considering moving towards retreats because I've got some great venues for retreats. Like one of my trips is a trip to southwestern France's Dordogne region. And we stay at an 11th century castle. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got 270 acres of grounds and walking trails, and the interior is like a museum. You know, when we travel, we tend to be like, I can't wait to get out of the hotel because you feel like you're wasting time at the hotel.
Mm.
I started to want to create trips where the hotel was a destination. And it just happens to be in this really cool place in southwestern France called the Dordogne. But we spend 7 nights. The whole trip is at the castle, but we do hub and spoke. So we go out every day into the villages and we go see 20,000-year-old cave paintings and olive oil tasting and caviar tasting and great restaurants and village walks and stuff. So that's fantastic. And I've got a new series of books called the Mindful and Intentional Traveler series that is based around this idea of traveling deep, not wide, and getting much more out of your experiences and your travels. And doing something like that where we could have exercises at the castle where you learn how to do these things, these skills. And then you go out into the villages and you put those skills into practice. Because what I'm talking about is something where I've got a book called How to Be a Mindful Traveler Using Your 5+ Senses. And what that means is just simply setting a timer for yourself every 1 or 2 hours and make sure that you just stop, look, listen, feel, smell, touch, taste your surroundings,
Mm-hmm.
soak it all in, and be present. You know,
Yeah.
because the past is gone, we'll never get it back. The future never really comes. All we have is right now. The
Yeah.
more mindful you can be, the more you're going to get out of your situation, whether you're traveling or you're just in your own backyard.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I love that that's because that's your value system right now and what you've learned through your life. Like you can call in those people who are yearning for those types of experiences. And so, kind of going back to, there's so many different ways you hit on interests. What is the best way to try this out? It's a big commitment to book a huge trip, start inviting people on. What are some of the core fundamental things you want to put in place before you open this up and start taking people's money and actually executing a trip?
Yeah. One thing I would recommend for people is to look at teaching at your local community college, community center. I'm from Chicago. I moved out to Southern California when I decided to start this business. I thought that I'm doing things outdoors. It'd be better to be in a place where I could do this year round. And I started working for a friend of mine who had a financial services business. I got my licenses. I became a financial advisor, but I was doing this on the side, teaching people how to use their new cameras, but also teaching them how to see, what to point the camera at, how to compose a photograph. And what I did, I started getting these quarterly newsletters from the city of Newport Beach Community Center, where people were teaching yoga and language classes and anything else, cooking, whatever it was. And I said, I'm going to teach people how to use their new digital cameras. So I created a digital camera course where I taught people how to go over their cameras. Now, the best thing about it is you don't have to have a teaching degree to do that. You could do it almost in any community, even community colleges. Some of them have these adult education programs. Look for that.
Mm,
And this is a great way to test out your idea, see if there's a market for it. I was doing it. So what I was doing was teaching people how to use their cameras and where to point their cameras. So I would have sample photographs. We'd sit around my computer. I would do it to 3 people if that's all I got in the class. But I was building my teaching skills because I
mm,
had to learn how to teach, right? I was meeting people. So I'm building my list. and I'm practicing how to teach.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to practice a business idea.
Yeah. And just like establishing that core skill set, because if you started to do this across the country or even on a different continent, and you've never even honed that skill where you're like, oh, how hard could it be? I'll just plan this trip, bring people along. You have no idea how to actually guide not even just one person, but multiple people in a group setting. Like, be prepared and create that skill set, even if you're not doing more of that teaching like you do, but still the guidance. Like, do you know how you're going to take multiple people along for an experience? Do you know how you're going to communicate, how you're going to make sure it's unique and cool for every single person? So it kind of sounds like, whether it's educational or not, start at a local level and just start like flexing those muscles and acquiring the skills that you're going to need at scale. And in this situation, scale is like bigger experiences, more in depth, like maybe expensive places. But you definitely don't want to be throwing yourself out there and doing a tour of Paris if you've never been, or if you've never guided people through an experience before.
No doubt. I started out very small. Like I said, sitting across the kitchen table from some lady that wanted to learn how to use her camera. And then I started doing half day tours with 3 or 4 people, and then full day tours, and then bringing groups down to San Diego from where I was on the train. And so I just kept building bigger and bigger trips. Then it was weekends to Joshua Tree National Park or Death Valley. Then I started bringing
Mm,
groups back to Chicago so I could get a free trip home and get paid for it. And then I started doing the international tours. But yeah, to just jump right into an international tour, I think could be a big mistake.
yeah. Unless that's like something that is in your wheelhouse where you've done a lot of that travel already, and then you're coming at it from the other angle of, I'm already traveling. What if I could find a way to take people along so that my travel is free? And I've already been to these places. I mean, outside of European or like international, I have a friend who, she just knows how to find the cool places. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee. She knows all the best spots to go, the best spots to eat. And I've told her, I'm like, you could totally target single women who want to feel safe going on an experience. You could take them to all the hot spots. She's like, yeah, but you can quick Google search that. I'm like, but they don't know what they don't know. And you can hit them on, I want it to be safe. I want it to be trendy. I want it to be unique. Create this experience. You don't even have to leave your own city, and then expand beyond that and start taking them other places where you've been. Cause she travels a ton. She has like a free companion pass situation with a friend. And so it's just so funny how we overcomplicate that. So with that being said, what are some of the other foundational things that have helped you really build that skill of being able to charge people money for this? Like, what did you have to consider as you went a little bigger and turned this into a legit business?
Yeah, like most people new to a business, I was way undercharging from the beginning. Getting your worth from the beginning it's difficult because I was like, someone's going to pay me $100 to travel. That's unbelievable. I thought that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then I realized it cost me 2,000 to do the trip and stuff. It wasn't quite that obvious, but it's definitely baby steps, and the pricing is really important. So that's what I go into in the tour organizer training. So I give all these bonuses and extras in the course. And the most valuable bonus is my pricing spreadsheet that took me
Hmm.
years to come up with. And now you plug in your numbers and it pops out a price
Yeah.
that you should probably charge.
And are you factoring in even just like your time? Because I have a friend who started planning trips, and she was so uncomfortable with increasing it by a few $100s. And I said, you're going to spend 8 months orchestrating this. So you need to factor in all the planning and all the different phone calls you're going to have with all the people who are coming, the preparation time. When all was said and done, she was totally in the negative, maybe not on paper, but for the amount of output. So is that something that you encourage people to factor in too?
Yeah, you have to factor that in, but you have to be realistic too, because I don't know if this is the right way to look at it, but when you're starting a business, you've got to spend that early time putting everything
Hmm.
together, and you're probably not going to get paid for it. And if you try to get that money back down the line, that can be difficult to do because you figure it, well, I make $100 an hour and I spend 800 hours. I got to charge an extra $80,000 over the course of the year. That's a lot of money. So it's a cost of doing business. It's a cost of learning, getting into business, but there's a balance. You got to be
Hmm.
realistic. Don't rip yourself off, but you also have to plan for the future.
Yeah. So, what are some of the ways that you can present value? Because you're obviously, when you're doing guided tours, it's not the people who are always just budget travelers. I mean, you could do that where like that's the advantage is we create a very affordable experience for you that still has that guidance, and that's going to be a little harder for you as a business owner to make a lot of money on, but you could subsidize that in other ways, maybe getting some of the accommodations for free. It's a sponsorship thing. Outside of that though, when you're looking at, does it really just kind of depend on the type of audience you're trying to garner, or how can you increase value and profitability without it costing you a lot more time or energy? What are some of the ways you've found a way to increase your bottom line?
I think I have a great audience. The target market that I'm going for, that avatar, is someone that's 50s and older, is probably already in retirement or moving towards it, has the money and time, the interest to do these things. They're teachable. So you have to think about all those things and what your target audience is. I never went after that low end 20 something traveler because those guys have the energy, they have the technical knowledge to go do the research. They want to save money, and there's very little money to be made on them. So I went after this market, which I'm in that target market and I know it. And they're the kind of people that I want to travel with. For me to travel around with a bunch of 20 somethings wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So know who your target audience is, where they are. That's where you need to market to them. And it's nice when it's something that you're interested in, because then you are that target market. So you have a good feel for what those people are after.
So on a like kind of logistical approach too, when it comes to liability and even like getting group rates and things like that, did you start to explore that just to even boost that profit margin as well? I know you're not like a formal travel agent necessarily. Maybe you are, maybe you're working under an umbrella of something. But what were some of those things that you didn't realize you needed to have in terms of coverage, just so that you're protected as you're taking people on these tours, that people need to consider as like an expense or just one more step they need to do?
Yeah, I eventually got a blanket uh, insurance policy to cover me for doing what I do. And there are companies that do that. It's pretty reasonably priced, even for someone doing as much travel and international travel as I do with groups. It was like $1,200 or $1,500 a year. So very
Yeah.
reasonable. And so I definitely recommend that you do that. But there's a lot of moving parts to these businesses. Do you do anything with flights for people? I don't. People want to fly certain airlines. They've got frequent flyer programs. They want to come early, stay late, go first class. So I just tell people where to be when for that first day or that first evening when we meet to start the trip. So they get their flights at my guidance. They make all their own arrangements, get their own miles and stuff. But anything internal within the trip, because there may be flights, our local tour operator can arrange those as well. So it just depends on the type of trip.
Mm-hmm. And then when you do like accommodations, that's, I would assume, always bundled into the tour price. And is there usually some good opportunity there to like, that's where some of the profit can come in because you're able to get things at a cheaper rate? You factor that into everything. I mean, I know it's all relative. You're looking at the overall, what I want to make from each person who attends this tour. But is that something you've spent a lot of time to find really valuable places that are a good rate that they'll work with you to make it more affordable on your end as the one paying the bill?
Yeah, it's a good question. But what I do, I initially started out trying to arrange everything myself. In the course, I call that the pain in Spain. I had already started doing some trips using a middleman. And then I said, I want to cut out the middleman and make the money myself, right? So then I tried to put together this trip to Spain that I'd been to many times. I knew all the places, but now I've got to find 4 different hotels for 4 different locations, guides, activities, meals, transportation, all these moving parts that you don't always think about. I figured out I had 36 different vendors to reach out to. Now I got to explain myself to all those people and why they should work with me. So I said, this is crazy. This isn't saving me any money. It's costing me more time, like you said. And so I decided that day I'm going to work with a local tour operator in the destination who has all those contacts already tell the tour operator exactly what I'm looking for. And this is the second most valuable thing in the course is the tour operator expectation list that I came up with. 7 pages of what I'm looking for my trips, the level of hotels, the types of guides, the length of the trip, budget, etc., and what I'm not looking for. I don't want museums and monuments and things like that. Those are for people to do during their free time. We like food and markets and people. So
Mm,
explaining to one person what you're after, and then they cobble the trip together and charge you for it. And they earn every dollar.
yeah. Yeah. You learn, you only have to do something the hard way once to know you're
Exactly.
just not
Well,
willing
me, I
to.
do it 3 or 4 times.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, we're all at different levels of stubbornness, I guess. And for you as an entrepreneur, that's knowing what's your value. Is it time or is it making as much money as you can, but spending way more time? And when you break that down, you're like, wow, I made $12 an hour because I wanted to make more money. So yeah, it's all relative. That's really good to know that you recommend that. And it's funny because you call them the middleman. And in many ways, this is where I really love entrepreneurship, where you don't have to create your own machine, your own company. You are essentially being a middleman because you're that marketer that's bringing people, you're finding the customers and you're bringing them to the tour and you're like operating and guiding, but you're not having to do all the grunt work on the back end. So it's a
Right.
genius pairing of skills and the thing that you actually love to do. So you can just kind of show up too. I mean, it's not fully just turnkey situation, but yeah, one person to navigate with versus 37 sounds a lot more enticing to me and feels like it's a more replicatable business model to do it that way. So when you're looking, because you've done this a long time, but if, maybe not starting out, but as somebody's getting more seasoned with creating these trips, where do you start? Do you start with the demand and where people want to go? Do you start with where you want to go and you kind of start to explore tours there and then you bring it to market? Or is it like the other way around or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I recommend that you go to places that you want to go, that you're interested in, because you have to have that interest. If you're
Mm-hmm.
just going to places that other people want to go, it's probably going to show. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
obvious. But I wanted to create trips to places that I wanted to go. And yeah, I'm a pretty average kind of guy. So a lot of people have similar tastes. And so I just found that tribe that has similar interests to me. And now I've got over 50% repeat rates. I've got clients
Mm.
that have been on 25, 30 of my trips, several
Wow.
of them multiple times, many 10, 15 times on my trips. So they're coming back over and over again. They're bringing their friends and family. And I think that says a lot. But
Yeah.
back to your question, I create trips where I want to go and look for people that have similar interests.
Yeah. Do you make sure you visited by yourself before you do the tour, or because you have the tour company, you don't worry as much about that?
No, I think it's important to go scout a place first. So I go typically a year in advance. I want to be there at the time of year that I plan to run the trip because I want those photographs, that video that
Mm,
shows the fall colors or the harvest or the spring flowers or whatever the season is that we're there. And so I can market the trip like that. But it also gives me about 2 months after the scouting trip to put the trip together, go back and forth, all the details, pricing, et cetera. Then I've got about 10 months to market the trip.
wow. That's amazing. So with you doing that many trips a year and scouting for the following year, you're traveling a decent amount. It's no wonder that you're like, we're going to pull back a little bit.
And that's why I don't have a home because I'm
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
road 8, 9 months out of the year. So it doesn't make sense for me to be paying rent somewhere 12 months.
Yeah. Yep. That makes perfect sense. This is all incredible. There's so many different ways you could approach it. It's a universally cool business model, but you can make it your own and you can really tap into what you love to do, how you can bring that interest in, create trips that you yourself would want to go on. It's kind of like what you're saying about your program, too. If only somebody had created this for me, I would have totally bought it. It's the same mentality with your trips. If only someone would have created this experience for me, now I could go create that for other people. And so I love that. It's a really cool way to tap into something you already love, which is travel, make money doing it, enhance and enrich other people's lives. And at the end of the day, that's what a successful business is. Everybody wins.
Yeah, and the best part of my job is that I get to share these places with my clients a year later. hopefully for many years later, because I try to run a trip 6, 8 times so that I can cookie cutter it. And I've done all the hard work up front. Now I just need to repeat. That's what I call it, rinse and repeat at the end of the course. But yeah, go into the places that you enjoy that are interesting to you. You could create a trip around any interest, book reading club, travel, language, cooking, knitting, shopping, textiles, anything. It's just so interesting that you could do this.
Yeah.
So highly recommend thinking
Cool.
about.
I love that you mentioned that too, the rinse and repeat thing, because I think we do a lot of work to create a one-time experience, but like, why wouldn't you maximize on the footage you get, not only from your year of preparation, but that exact trip? I go to a yearly event and it's so fun because you see the footage of last year and you're kind of reminded, or if it's people's first time, they get a sense of what it's going to be like. And so I love that you run the trip 5 or 6 times so that you're really maximizing the amount of effort that you put into creating it as a trip itself.
I always thought that, okay, yeah, I'm just going to cookie cutter it. I've already put in all the work, but to be honest, there's still a lot of work. Say 50% of the work is still there, even though you've run the trip before. Because if you're like me, you're going to always want to be improving it, tweaking it, making it better, making it more efficient, so I don't want you to think that, oh, you cookie cutter it and your work's done. All you got to do is show up. That's not quite the case.
Yeah. Well, and again, it speaks to more anyone listening. Don't feel like you have to do 12 trips for it to be a success, because even being able to enhance 3 trips a year and kind of stick to those same trips. Like, I know people who do just the same one trip over and over every year, and they start doing that twice a year, same location. So I think it's, you look at, what do you love more, the variety, or you love this experience so much that you just want to take 500 people through it over the next 10 years, and that's the priority. So there's a lot of ways that you can spin this and just figure out what your value is and then how the best way is to execute on that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, where's the best place for people to connect with you? Thank you so much, Ralph, for everything that you have shared. So if they want to learn more, best place for them to go hit you up.
Sure. Go to continentaldrifter.co is my website. That's the hub of everything. You can see all the trips that I can plan. So now I'm only doing 2 or 3 trips a year that I'm organizing and leading, and it's with mostly a top tier group of clients. But I'm also planning trips for other people that are looking to put their own groups together. If you put 5 or 8 people together, we can even get you free travel. So if you've got a group that you'd like to put together, you could go to that castle in France or some of these other places that I bring my groups to. You could put your own group together. It could be family, friends, whatever. So that's there. And there's a custom tours form on the tours drop down. You fill that out and let me know what you're thinking about. But the other thing is my blog and all the podcasts I've been on, my books are there. The Bucket List for Travel is my new book that I came out with. So look for Continental Drifter on Amazon for that Bucket List for Travel book. That's my newest book, part of the Mindful and Intentional Traveler series. And it's a great gift for any travelers in your life for the holidays.
Cool. Love it so much. Thank you again. It's been
Thank
such a
you.
pleasure learning from you. And I'm sure our audience would agree. It was good information and great insight into how you can actually make money doing something like you love. We all love to travel. We're all digital nomads at heart. So thank you for everything.
Pleasure. Reach out to me, Ralph at continentaldrifter.co if anyone has any questions.